Hi, my name is Eric, and I'm an American, and I'm here in London this week, and I'm going to talk to you about why diesel cars seem to have fallen out of favor or are falling out of favor in countries like the UK, and why. Now, generally speaking, on my channel, I like to cover sports cars and high-performance cars and stuff like that, so I've got a really unique Ferrari that I'm going to be featuring very soon. It's going to be right up here in the card as soon as that video is ready.
I went to the climate change riots and I told him this is what I circulated. You can have the piece of paper, circulated in 2006 as a blob, and it lists all the things that were going to happen, which have now happened, but how to deal with climate change, what must be done and should have been done. I've written two books. The first book called The Berlin Wall Down and Turned China into the industrial might that it is. And the second book lays out in parable form all the problems we have today and how to deal with them. And as an aside, tells you how to build and fly a flying saucer using the Kawanda effect. And when I was at BP Research Centre, Professor Desti said, "Richard, you're breaking every rule in the book. We want incremental steps. We don't actually want revolutionary results. But 3 generations down the road, we'll be living underneath the ground as if we were on Venus."
Right.
And there's nothing we can do about it because as the it's all in there, as the permafrost melts, it puts methane into the air in huge amounts. Methane is 25 times worse for the atmosphere, and scientists know this. You can literally turn the Earth into the result of a laser. The sun just simply goes through the atmosphere and cannot escape, and it's lasering the Earth. Have this. That's me. Okay. It's worth millions to you. Now you go away and work out whether you want to be a very, very rich man or not. A millionaire overnight. You've got it all there.
Thank you very much. Okay, that was a very interesting interruption indeed. And the guy gave me a whole lot of materials on climate change, and that is really at the heart of what we're going to be talking about here in this video. You've probably heard, if you're American, that diesel cars are not that popular in the US, which you know, but why are they so popular in Europe and in the UK? Well, there's about 3 main reasons for that. Historically, petrol prices, gas, has been cheaper than diesel. That's the first reason. Diesel's a little bit cheaper. The second reason is that diesel-powered cars get better fuel economy. So there's 3 reasons why diesel cars have been popular in the UK and also throughout Europe. The first one is that, historically speaking, diesel has been less expensive than petrol in the UK and other countries in Europe. The second reason is that diesel gives you a higher fuel efficiency, and that's because there is more density per cubic meter, or whatever the measure is, of diesel fuel. And the third one is that diesel cars tend to last a little bit longer because typically they are turbocharged and they have thicker cylinder walls. They are built essentially for more compression, for higher pressure from the turbocharger. Recently though, that has changed. I just looked up the fuel prices, the average fuel prices in the UK as of today, and we're talking about the first or the second day of July in 2019, and the average price of petrol is about £1.28 per liter. Diesel is about £1.31 per liter right now. So if you convert that to US dollars, and I'm looking at my phone here, convert that to US dollars, that's about $1.61 per liter. And if you want to do a little bit more conversion, that's about 3.78 liters per US gallon. So finish that conversion. The cost of gasoline, of petrol in the UK is about $6.11 per gallon right now. Diesel, about $6.72 per gallon. Now I also looked on the continent, which means the rest of Europe, and today it's a little bit higher in Europe. So that is roughly 2 to 3 times the price of what Americans pay for fuel. In California, it's about 2 times. If you're down somewhere not in California, you're looking about somewhere a little over $2 a gallon. Fairly inexpensive compared to Europe. So historically speaking, diesel has been cheaper, and of course you're getting better fuel economy with the diesel too, which is why, one of the main reasons why they've been so popular in Europe. One of the other factors to look at, of course, is the size of the parking spaces and the amount of space that you have how wide the roads are here in Europe. They're a lot narrower than what you have in North America. After all, these cities were built before the advent of the motor car. Of course, so the main factor is that petrol prices historically have been higher than diesel prices. Diesel's always been a little bit less expensive, and with a better fuel economy, it just makes a lot of sense for a big city like this. But there's another factor as well, and that's one of the big factors, which of course is climate change and the increase in pollution controls in cities like London. So what we've got here in London is you've got a congestion charge, which historically has been about £11.50 to drive into the middle of the city. Recently, April of this year, there's been a change. And if you drive a diesel car that is older than a 2015, or if you drive a petrol car that is older than a 2006, and you want to drive into central London, you're now talking about an additional charge, an additional £12.50 per day. So if you've got one of these older cars, you're looking at about £24 per day to drive into central London. That's a lot of money. And obviously what the government is trying to do is trying to basically clean up the air and reduce the popularity of diesel cars in central London. Now in the US, we don't have any cities like this yet. However, in New York City in 2021, thereabouts, they're going to introduce a congestion charge too. If you get in a taxi in New York City already, you're going to pay, I think, about $2.50 just to drive into the middle of the city. And in New York City, they're trying to reduce the amount of congestion that you have. So vehicles entering into central London now need to pay the ULEZ fee, which is ultra low emission zone fee. And this is for vehicles that meet these higher emission standards and produce less particulate matter. So one of the reasons why diesel cars were popular in the past is that they produced less carbon dioxide than gasoline. However, they produce more nitrous oxides and particulate matter about 22 times that of petrol. Particulate matter is basically the smog, the brown stuff that gets into the air and what makes you feel like a city is polluted. If you've been to cities in Asia, for example, or India, you can see there's just a lot of sort of dirty air, and that is partly because of diesels, but also partly because they have less pollution regulations in some of these countries. Okay, so what's really the driver behind this? Obviously, it is climate change. By 2040 in the UK, all traditionally petrol-powered, diesel-powered vehicle sales are going to be halted. Same in France. I've heard that, I haven't really heard much about this in the US, but obviously climate change is a real thing. If you're a climate change denier, sorry, I don't buy that argument at all. Now, is it going to work in cities like London? So you just saw a big city bus past me, and obviously in cities like London and Paris and New York, you've got fairly good public transit systems. So you don't really need a traditionally powered, a gasoline-powered car to move around in a big city where we have good infrastructure. Now, in Los Angeles, we don't really have the same kind of public transit infrastructure like we do in some of the other big cities, and that is a little bit of a problem. However, with respect to electric adoption has been a lot higher in California and specifically in LA than a lot of other places. So clearly the impetus behind the ban, essentially the ban on diesel cars, the reduction of diesel cars in the UK, is going to be climate change and it's pollution, and the government is taxing these vehicles like they haven't before. So the old school, the traditional reason for getting a diesel of good fuel economy is probably going to be outweighed by the new taxes if you're not driving that far. If you're just driving into the city, for example, you're driving short distances, it might take quite a while for you to get that money back that you're going to save on the diesel because of the new taxes. Diesel cars are also more expensive to begin with, and now with essentially the equivalence in diesel prices and petrol prices, I'm not sure that it makes that much sense to buy a diesel anymore. Now, there's gradations of this. There are different levels of diesel that you can buy. The newer diesels are going to have less tax on them, but I understand that there's still going to be taxes on diesel cars in the UK, and that is not going to go away. So how is this working in practice? Are the new congestion fees working? Is there less traffic? Is there less pollution? I don't have any hard stats right now. It's only been about 2 months. However, I've been walking around the city, and I'm going to be driving around the city tomorrow to go check out this really, really interesting Ferrari. Just from my perspective, walking around. There doesn't seem to be too much air pollution. It doesn't seem to be too bad. The air quality seems to be pretty good. I'm here in the middle of the summer. We just had a really, really hot day. For the UK, at least, it was, I think it was about 90 degrees Fahrenheit. It was like, 27, 28 Celsius, something like that. Pretty warm. Congestion-wise, I'm not driving around yet, but I'll let you guys know tomorrow how that is. There's a couple of videos on screen right now if you're interested in seeing more of this kind of stuff. I've also got a Patreon, which is a way to support the channel. It helps fund trips to things like the new C8 Corvette, which I'm going to be at the reveal in just about 3 weeks from now. If you're interested in that, please go ahead and subscribe. And I want to thank my Patreons. They're right up here on screen. I don't have a list in front of me, but Real6 is a huge contributor. And the rest of them are up on screen too. Sorry, I don't remember all your names off the top of my head. My name is Eric, and I will see you next time.